What's going on, everyone? This is Ethan, the Games Adjuster, and today we are talking about the 2 to 5 player game, The Godfather, Corleone's Empire. So this game is published by CMON, or Cool Mini or Not. This is designed by Eric Lang, I believe. And yeah, it's a Godfather themed worker placement slash area control game. So let's go down to the table. I'll show you how it's played. I'll show you how to store it away, and we'll come back here for some final thoughts. So here we go. In the game, players will first need to set up the board based on the player count. There are a few things that we'll need to add. Firstly, we'll need to add some of these jobs on the side of the board over here. If you are playing with a 5-player game, which is what we're going to simulate here, then you will have one in each space. There is a deck of job cards over here that you'll shuffle, and then you'll place 4 of those out, and these are kind of public jobs that can be completed by anyone at any time. Once they have, of course, the resources, we'll talk about that. In addition to that, you'll need to place out some of the starting businesses. The board is pre-printed with some of these businesses here, like for example this barber shop. However, some of the tiles here will be added to the board not only during the game but at the beginning of the game based on player count. So in a 2-player game, it's a pretty sparse board, but if you have 4 or more or 5 or more, then you'll add some of these. So here you'll see 4 or more, we'll add one here, 5 or more, we'll add one here, and we'll also add one up here. These are coming from a stack of tiles here, so depending on which one came out would be there, but these will be added throughout the game, and these will be added in the last 2 rounds here of the game, Acts 3 and 4. All right, in addition to that, you're also going to put out some of these allies. There are 6 allies per act, and they just kind of expand on each other, getting more powerful. Here we just randomly selected some, so we have the Union Boss, for example. We will put out a number of these based on player counts. If there are 3 or more players, there will be 2. 4 or more players, there will be 3. 5 or more players, there will be 5. Some of these allies do come with their own figure. Like here, the Union Boss comes in a figure, kind of looks like a thug. All right. And then after that, players will get their individual resources. So each player is going to get one of these nice little tins here, based on the color that they chose as the red players. They will also get a stack of control markers, and then they'll get a couple of miniatures. In a 2-player game, you'll actually start with 3 of these thug minis, and the thugs are denoted by their square base, and 1 family member. But in a 3 or more player game, you only have 2 thugs and 1 family member. Now you do have a total of 3 family members that you'll eventually get all 5 figures, 2 thugs, and the 3 family members, but the consigliere and the heir are going to be up here in Acts 2 and 4 respectively. All right, in addition to that, each player will randomly be given 2 jobs. So I've just randomly got these 2, a $3 denomination, 2, and then a 1. Now, it's important to note that you can never get change in this game. So if we go over here a little bit, you'll see the kind of resources that there are. There are money cards, 5, 3, 2, 1, and then there's 4 resources. We've got booze, blood money, guns, and then narcotics, which is basically like a wild. All right, now if I were to later have to spend money, let's say, on the bribery phase when we get to that, I can't say, well, I'm going to put my 5 in this here and I only want to spend 3 of it. If whatever card I choose is the card I choose to use, if I'm ever paying for something, that is what you end up having to pay. And again, there's no change, which is very important. All right. So once everybody's got set up, we will begin the game. Now the game is played over 4 acts, and each act has 5 phases. The first phase is we'll open new businesses. So again, we'll consult this little stack here. We'll have shuffled that before the game. The top blue one we will add into the next business. So here we have 1 and 1, 2, 3 added 1. So we're actually going to put this up here in 4, which would be right here in Queens. And this is just randomly another business that's going to go out and be available for the players. Then after that, and there is a kind of neat little tracker up here that you'll see. You can just move this car along. Boop. And now we're in the family phase. So family business phase, we'll basically just start taking acts. So you have 4 major actions that you can do. And you can only do these actions as long as you still have workers left in your supply. All right, so let's zoom into the board a little bit here. We'll start talking through some of them. Now, the first thing you can do is place a thug. When you place a thug, you are going to be gaining whatever's in the front of the business. So here, if I was to place this thug here at the gun dealership, I would get one gun and add that to my hand. Okay? And that would be it. That'd be next player's turn. Now, at the beginning of the game, nobody controls these turfs, but the next phase after this will be the turf wars, and we'll be tracking to see who controls things. If, for example, the green player had already controlled Midtown, let's say in Act 2, 3, or 4, or even in Act 1, depending on what kind of cards they play, if they control Midtown and I did the same action by shaking down the front of this business with a thug, then whoever controls it also gets the same reward. So here, green would get their own gun and add that to their hand. And the same is true of every other action here. So let's just kind of talk about what these actions are. Here, if you ever see the job symbol, you will draw 2 job cards from the top of the deck, keep one of them, add it to your hand, and then put the other ones back. Here at the meats building, for example, you can get a suitcase of money, and then you also get $2. And you can do that in either order. Now, suitcasing money is very important. At the end of the game, whoever has the most money is going to be the winner. But the money that you have in hand will count, only the last 2 cards that you have. But throughout the game, you'll be needing to suitcase that money in here. Now, anytime you suitcase money, you'll need to show the players what you are suitcasing and announce it. So if, let's say, I had this 3 from my hand at the beginning of the game, I say, okay, I'm going to suitcase the 3. I'll put that in there. Now, it's good for them to know because, of course, they want to know kind of where you're at, how much money they think you might have put in away. But also, there are cards that will interact with that money in the suitcase. And perhaps, extortion was one of the cards that can take the money from your suitcase and put it in theirs. So you kind of need to mix it up a little bit, maybe, so you don't give them all the good stuff. Maybe you throw a few ones in there just in case that happens. But the suitcase is printed on quite a few places. There's another space down here for guns, and you actually get $1. This is one of the ones that's not pre-printed. But the blood money, of course, is another resource you can get. The booze up top, there's one here with booze and money. Now, the horse head token is the first player mark. In the beginning of the game, whoever most recently watched The Godfather will get this horse head token. And it's kind of hard to see there, but there you go. Anyways, here at the pawnbroker, you can take that and get $1, and you can be the first player going forward. Otherwise, the first player will stay from round to round, whoever it is. There are some locations that will let you discard things. So here, for example, you can discard any one card to get any of the main 3 resources. While here, pre-printed on the board at the Calvary Cemetery, that's kind of funny, for another video if you watch that one, you can discard 2 cards to get a $5, right? And so players will start taking these actions, and that's one of the things you can do is interact with these with your thugs, shake down the front of the business, and get what they give you. Now, in addition to that, you could also play a family member. Now, the family members have the round bases here. And so when you play a family member, instead of placing at the front of the businesses, you'll place them on any of these circle spaces. Depending on the player count, some of these spaces may not be available. So you notice in a 2-player game, you could not go here or here. But this is a 5-player, so I could go, but I'm going to go actually right here in the middle. And when I shake down a business with a family member, I'm actually going to do kind of behind the scenes stuff, backdoor stuff. So the top of each location is the resources you get. So if I were to do this action here, I will get the back of each business, and that's all businesses in the turfs I'm touching. So here I would get to draw 2, keep 1 of the jobs, suitcase of money, get a gun, and suitcase another money, because I am touching all 3 of these turfs here, Wall Street, Midtown, and Chelsea. Okay, and so that's something else you can do. Now, the next thing you can do is complete a job. These jobs will show you some of the requirements that they have. So here, take the cannoli is one of the jobs I have here. It says it's cost me 1 gun, and I can do that. If I do that, I get to not only suitcase this card, I can gun down 1 enemy thug, which is the square bases, and I get $3. And I could later on suitcase that $1 too. Here, backroom deal requires 2 booze, and it says show up to 3 money cards from your hand and suitcase them, and that could of course be the $2 that I just got. All right, so if you have a thug or family member still in front of you, you can go ahead and complete a job, and you will get whatever it says on there and get the money potentially, and then you'll suitcase again the job card. This is important because at the end of the game, we'll do majorities. Whoever has the most of each type of job, there are 4 types of jobs. There's yellow, green, gray, and blue. Whoever has the most is going to get an extra $5 for each one that they have the most in. All right. Now, the last thing you can do is, and when you complete a job, by the way, you can also complete one over here from the available pool on the side. So I showed that we set these up based on player count. These are also available to the players. And so rather than complete one in your hand, you could just do one of these. So here's the one I was talking about, extortion, where it costs 3 booze, but add to your hand 3 money cards from 1 player suitcase, their choice. And then you also get 2 $3 bills. Now remember, the money does not go immediately into your suitcase unless the card tells you it does. All right, and these do all kinds of things, by the way. So muscled out says move any figure to a new space. They don't get ability. Drive-by shooting here says gun down 1 figure from up to 2 different players. So unlike the first one I showed you, this is not just thugs. This could be even family members as long as it's 2 different players. And it's important to remember to read those items because sometimes it'll say thugs, sometimes it'll say family members, sometimes it'll say all enemy figures. Anytime a figure is gunned down, let's say someone had gunned down my thug, we just throw them in the river and now they're sleeping with the fishes. Or I could just play this in front of me once per round. Basically, you get to play these, and this would let me do another suitcasing action. Now, there are all kinds of allies here. Some of them I showed you have some of their own kind of figures. So let's talk about these. We've got the Union Boss here, which looks like a thug, and it basically says, move the Union Boss to any unoccupied business, thug space, shake down the front of that business like a thug. Tax Advisor we talked about. Police Chief, move the police chief to a turf. Move any 1 figure out of that turf to any other space. Gets no ability. The police chief is unique in that even though it's a round base, it does not actually go in one of these circle spaces. You just kind of put it into the territory. All right, and then the mayor here does act like a family member and would occupy one of these circle spaces here. And it says move the mayor to any unoccupied family member space. Shake down the back of all businesses in the adjacent turfs like a family member. Very powerful. Basically just like another worker that works for you. Now, it's possible that in Acts 2 and 3, someone else will get a mayor or police chief card, in which case, you know, the first player can move wherever they want to, and then the second player can move them to another space and do their power just the same way. So no particular player will actually ever control them as part of their family. You'll just influence them, their allies, potentially for multiple people. All right, so continue taking these actions, either shaking down the front of a business, shaking down the back of the business with a family member, playing an ally card, or completing jobs from either your hand or the side of the board until all players have taken all their actions, in which case, if you are done taking actions, you have to pass, or if you have no more workers, you have to pass, and then we'll move on to the next phase. So, in the next phase, we will check for territory control. So I'll just go ahead and throw out some of these workers here. Let's say we got the situation like this. This guy is unfortunate. He's over here. We've got that there. What else can we do? Let's put him here, him there, there, that there, there, there. Whoop. And last 2 guys, we'll just put one in the water, and we'll put one here. Okay, so now that we've kind of seeded the board a little bit, let's see what would happen. So in the turf war, what we'll be doing is checking to see who controls which territories and then rewarding them with the control marker. So we'll start from the lowest numbered territory, Wall Street, and work our way up around the board. So here, Wall Street, we have a tie. Red has 1 presence, purple has 1 presence, nobody gets it. Here in Brooklyn, the blue player would get it, so we take one of their control markers because it's 2 to nothing, and we put that here. Here in the Upper East Side, the yellow player would get it. We put that over here. Over here in Queens, it's actually a tie, so blue is connected to both Midtown and Queens. Yellow player has 1, so nobody gets it. Here in the Upper West Side, the tie would persist as well, purple and green. Here in Central Park, it's another, well, nobody gets Central Park, but here at Chelsea, same thing, another tie. And then here in Midtown, it's actually the red. Oh, I'm sorry, there's actually a tie there. So, no, it's red. This is red, sorry. I meant to put this. I don't know why I put this here. Sorry. Okay, this would be purple, and this would be red. Here's 1, 2 versus 1, 1, 1. And then, oh, that was from earlier. That's why. I know I'm not crazy. Okay, red, purple. Okay, so now, anytime this is controlled from here on out, then again, once someone shakes down the front of a business using a card or a thug, then the owner of that control marker gets control. Now later in the game, let's say this was Act 2, and the same thing happened. Well, if we changed it, then we put another one on there. If it stayed the same, we put another one on there, but only if they actually controlled it. So here, let's say red wasn't here. So it's blue, yellow, green, red, all tied in Midtown. Would we put another control marker? Well, no, we don't, because it's still no one controls it. However, if red was here, even though they controlled it last turn, we'll still put another one, because at the end of the game, whoever has the most control markers in each of these stacks is going to get additional money. Also, another $5 each. If there's a tie, let's say I had 2 red and someone else had 2 green in the same stack, whoever's on top would get the extra bonus. All right, now neutral figures will affect that. So let's say, for example, we had this person here, the union boss in Wall Street. Well, let's say red wasn't there. Had union boss not been there, purple would get Wall Street, but this neutral figure counts as its own faction. Since it tied, nobody gets it again. Okay? So that is the turf war phase. You'll do that for every single one of these turfs. And then we'll move on to the bribery phase. So the bribery phase is where we're going to get these allies. And basically what you'll do is everybody will get their suitcase in front of them. Even if you're not going to bid, you still have to participate here. And if you had money in your suitcase, you'd have to have money in here to do this. So let's say I had this one. You can put as much money as you want at the top of your suitcase lid. And then once everybody's ready, you'll all reveal them. And whoever has the most money up here will to take the first ally that they want. Now, of course, even regardless of player count, somebody is not going to get an ally, depending, well, because there's always going to be one less number of players. Okay, so you'll bid. If there's ever a tie, we'll go from clockwise order. Whoever has the horse head token would be first, and then clockwise from there. And each of you would select an ally. Now, this ally does count towards your hand size, which will take us to the next phase. And that money, by the way, is spent and goes back to the bank. And then we move on to the next phase, and that's the intra-act phase. And so what this does is says, okay, at the end of the round, you need to discard cards from your hand equal to the number printed here. So in the first round, we'd only have 5 cards in our hand. If this was our hand and we had taken an ally, we would have to choose some of these cards to get rid of. So I might say, okay, well, I'll get rid of the 1, and I'll get rid of this backroom deal, but I'll keep these 5 cards. And this does count. So this is a powerful ability. Yes, it kind of helps you to stall throughout the round, but it will count towards your hand size. All right, and then the resource you didn't keep would get discarded. Money would go back. Any uncompleted jobs on the side of the board would stay there, but if there had been some completed and taken off, then we would just refill those from the deck randomly. There you go. And then we would go ahead and advance Don Corleone up to the next act, and then we would start taking turns again. Now in Acts 2 and 4, we will go ahead and take one of our consigliaries and then eventually our heir, and they'll add those to your pool. And rounds 3 and 4, Acts 3 and 4, you'll actually get these red cards, and the red tiles, rather, will introduce more powerful abilities like narcotics here, which is a wild resource, or double suitcase, or spend 3 cards and get $8 total, or get a narcotics and a suitcase. Very cool. If you would ever run out of particular kind of money, you can get the next denomination down. So if I needed to get here this 5 and 3, but all the 3s were gone, I can get a 5 and a 2, or if all the 5s were gone, I can get 2 3s. And you'll just continue playing the game like that. After we do this 4 times, The last two cards you keep in your hand from round Act 4, if it's money, it will actually go straight into your suitcase. This is the one exception to the other rules, the other rounds. If it's not money, then it's just discarded, and that ends the game. You'll check whoever controls the most turfs will get $5 each for each turf. They will get $5 for whoever has the most of each job type. They'll count the money in their suitcase, and then whoever has the most money is the winner. Okay, let's briefly talk storage. The game does come with a decent insert. It's pretty good at holding stuff. It just seems like overkill. You'll notice here I put the control markers in each of these spaces, but there are extra spaces in the middle. I don't know if they were like thinking maybe there'd be an expansion. There never was one, and I doubt they're going to come out with one now. But that's it. Other than that, I mean, it's pretty good. So maybe even just a little too big, honestly. But okay. Let's talk about putting this in. So in this top space here, I actually have the tiles. Those fit pretty well right there. I have the control markers there. And then I actually don't use these cardwells on the side. I just put them in these suitcases here. Now you could put them there, that's fine. You do what you want. But I definitely use this. The game does come with this nice holder for all the miniatures. I have all the thugs of each family together, and then all the family members of each family together on each side. I typically try to put the heirs at the bottom of the family member side, so that way it's easier to remember like which one's the Dong and Sibley heir. Put that here at the top, and then I actually use these suitcases to hold the cards. So I will put all the resources together, just kind of front to back these, so it's easier to separate them later. I'll put that here and slide that together in there. I'll get all the jobs together, put those in one of these tins, and we'll put that up there. Then the allies, same thing, put those together, put that here. And then the money, I usually do 2s and 1s together, back to back. And then the 5s and 3s together, back to back. There we go. There we go. And then the last thing is the board and the rules. And that's how you store this one away. So let's go up top, and then I will tell you what I think about it. Okay, there you go. So let's talk about it. We'll start with the theme. I think the theme is good, not great. The biggest flaw I find at this point is that it could have been just mafia themed, not necessarily The Godfather. So I don't feel that, other than some quotes in the rule book and some of the names that are used, and that you get a little Don Corleone figure, it's not really, doesn't feel like The Godfather. It just feels like a mafia gang in New York with drugs, booze, narcotics, and guns. That's what it feels like. So in that sense, I think it's good because, some of the stuff you're doing, shaking down the front of the business, shaking down the back of the business, killing people, putting them in the Hudson River, that stuff's thematic. Is it tied to The Godfather? I don't really think so. So it's pretty good, but not excellent. Production-wise, more of the same. I think the minis are great. I like that they're colored bases. That's a good touch. I like the tins. Those are cool. The board looks nice, I think. It's pretty easy. I like those little control markers. I like how they even have like the puppet strings kind of look thing. That's Godfather related. But my biggest issue production-wise is just the cards. I don't think they're good quality. They're kind of thin and flimsy. And huge miss, I think, if you're going to put the Godfather theme, why not put like some kind of other artwork on these cards reminiscent of maybe The Godfather? All they have is the same picture, this picture right here basically, on the top of every job card, which is boring because the only difference is they're purple, gray, green, or yellow. Beyond that, it's this face, this picture, which is a cool little painting, and the words and text that you need and the resources you need, and that's it. And even the resources are kind of boring. They're just the 4 different cards, the narcotics, the booze, the guns, and the blood money. And they're just boring colors. And I mean, I guess the green makes sense. Why the booze is yellow, I don't know. The gray guns, I guess. I don't know. It's just the cards are the biggest flaw for me as far as production goes. Everything else is fine. I just wish maybe they had done a better job on that. Or maybe had like actual resources. I know that they kind of go in your hand. That's part of it. So I don't know what they could have done different as far as the resources go, but certainly the jobs could have been just better artwork or something. And again, had it not been Godfather, maybe they would have gone that route. I think Godfather just had to put it somewhere, and so they kept putting the Godfather's face on everything, which I don't know. It didn't really come out to me as something that I like to see a lot. As far as or like even the allies have like all this cool artwork. Why not throw some of them? I don't know. It's just that's the biggest flaw I think production wise. Rules are pretty easy. They didn't come with any rules aid, which I'm really big fan of course, but the back of the rulebook is used to explain the setup and the rules and stuff like that, so that's nice. The gameplay itself is not hard. It pretty much explained everything that's going on other than some of the ally powers in that rules overview, so it's a pretty easy game. The first time maybe you might get tripped up on you can't take any more actions once you are out of people, even if you could complete a job now. So keep that in mind. And also, you draw 2 job cards instead of 1, and discard the other when you get the job cards action. So those are some things that can be easily missed. And then when you place out the business tile, I think on the board it's printed there just to remind you what color you need, but it almost looks like, am I supposed to put another one out at the end of the phase? It's kind of confusing in that sense, I feel sometimes. So that may be just a me thing, but the other 2 certainly you'll forget. But beyond that, again, I think it's easy. It's a pretty simple rule set to get in and out of, and I think it's for being kind of that area control, again, worker placement. It doesn't have anything that's too complex, and I think it works well together. As far as gameplay goes, yeah, I think it's good. Now, I like the worker placement. I like the area control. I like looking at the other players' figures and figuring out like where could they possibly go. Or I know they took that ally earlier. They haven't used it yet. When are they going to use that police chief? Maybe I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket because I don't want them to, take them out and put them in the Hudson. Or there's a car bomb out there in the public objectives. They've been getting a lot of guns. Are they going to use that soon? Maybe I should use it first. That kind of stuff is very interesting, and I really enjoy that. And I especially like to like the family members, how they control multiple turfs, which is I think is a good thematic touch, and also it makes some of the spots really powerful. And depending on how those tiles come out, you could have a spot that gives you blood money, booze, and guns all in one action, and that could be very very powerful. But because of that, it becomes kind of a target for other players because they might take you out, and then they try to take it over. So that's really interesting. Now the one downside I'll say is just the luck factor. Because there's some of that chaos of killing figures and blowing up turfs and moving control markers to another turf and all these different jobs, sometimes it feels just a little bit too lucky, I think, as far as what you're doing, because even at the beginning of the game, there's no scaling on these jobs. You might get 2 jobs that are just 1 resource each, very easy to do the first round, and you get some quick money, you can suitcase it right away, and then you feel like you've kind of got a lot more to use in the next phase. Whereas someone else might get 2, things that are 3 guns apiece, 2 car bombs basically, and there's no way they could possibly even get 3 guns the first phase because of the tiles that are out there. They're holding on to it. They got a discard down. They didn't really get a chance to get a lot of money, and they got kind of bullied out of that spot maybe. So because there's no scaling, I think of the job cards, I find that it can just be really swingy as what you get. Also, there can be a little bit of like picking on players a little bit if the one figure take out cannoli, just or get the cannoli. It's like take out 1 thug. Okay, fine. They eliminate 2 figures, drive-by shooting, take out 2 figures from 2 different enemies, so you kind of share the love there. But the car bomb, you can have like all your guys in one spot, which could be bad for you to do, but somebody could just take you out or just purposely kill all your people every time. And that's true of any kind of attacking type game. But because it's dependent on them getting those cards, if you never get those cards yourself, there's no retaliation for you, which I think kind of stinks sometimes. Because it is also like a Euro game. So you're trying to go to the best, most strategic spots, but then you kind of get screwed because people are shooting you, and there's really no way for you to get back at them other than like maybe you get the extortion card, you can steal their money, but you can't actually affect their figures. And controlling the areas is so important because if you control those areas, you not only get points at the end of the game, and money's at points, but you get stuff every time they go. So if someone visits that suitcase and gun spot, you're going to get a suitcase and a gun each time, and that's really, really critical, especially again early in the game. So If you get unlucky and someone just wipes you off the board, or two players wipe you off the board, and you have no control of anything, you're gonna have a tough time because you're already behind the ball. You have no control. You have, no way of getting extra resources when everybody else is, and yeah, that can be kind of unlucky. So keep that in mind. But I think it's cool. I think it's good. Um, the time wise, super quick. It says 60 to 90 minutes. I think that's about right. Four players, probably, yeah, an hour 15 or so. Not long, as long as everybody knows what they're doing. You're moving along pretty quick. And the between round stuff is not that much. Just take your people back, flip a new tile over, and maybe get more people depending on which act you're in. That's it. And then you just play through, check the turf control. Not that hard. End of the game, not that hard to score the points. The money cards, I do like that they're easy to add up. You have 5, 3, 2s, and 1. So all the 5s, put those together, make as many 10s or 15 bundles that you can. And then the 3s and 2s, you can put those together, make more 5s, and put those again with the 5s, make more 10 bundles. And then the 1s are like the extra. So I think that's easy to do. It doesn't take long to do at the end. Now the variety, I think, is another part where I don't know how much there is. So I've had this game for a few years. I got it as I'm pretty sure as like a birthday gift, maybe. I can't remember now. But I've had it for a few years. I've always kept it because I like the mafia theme. If you've seen some of my other videos, I'm a sucker for that. I'm not like totally into the Godfather, so the IP doesn't really do it for me, but I do like just the mafia theme, and I think it's a cool game. I like the little figures and stuff like that. But there's not really a whole lot to explore after your first play. Now, you will not see every single ally each game. You only see, 1 to 4 of them, depending on the player count. And you won't see every single tile because you won't see the board with as many in a lower player count game. And even with 5 players, you're still not going to see all of them. So maybe 2 plays, and you've pretty much seen everything. And the tiles aren't that different. Maybe it's 2 money in a suitcase, or 1 more blood money in a suitcase, or a blood money and $2 or something. It's not really that much of a variance because there's only the 4 resources, and there's really not that many actions. You can get resources, the different kinds, including narcotics. You can suitcase money. You can get a job, or you could discard cards for money. That's pretty much it. So that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying this has to have like 20 different resources, but because there's kind of a few spots you can highlight to be very important early on, right when the game is set up, it kind of makes it like everybody kind of knows what you're doing. And again, you can't really control the luck of getting the good jobs necessarily, or someone picking on you kind of. So that can kind of, I don't know. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't help the variety because it feels like you're just kind of at the mercy of whatever you get. And if it works out, it works out. If not, oh well. And the next game is going to be more of the same. Not to say there's no tactic or strategy. Of course there is. But yeah, I don't know. It's something, the variety's not great. So overall, I do like the game, but it's starting to wear for me a little bit. So maybe, a couple years ago, you've asked me, I would have been like, oh yeah, it's a good solid 8 or so because I really love the theme. Nowadays, I have to be a little more judicious in what I consider to be really good, or what I really want to keep in the collection. I'm still going to keep it. I do, like I said, like the theme of it. But compared to other worker placement games, I just don't know how much I'm going to want to come back to it, because I do find the artwork on the jobs boring, the artwork on the resources boring, the luck of the jobs very high, and I don't know. It feels like if you have a bad first round, you're going to have a bad game overall, and I've seen it happen at the table several times. So overall, I think if you really like the Godfather theme, it's probably a 7. It's good. I'm usually willing to play it. It's pretty cool. Something kind of unique, worker placement, area control stuff together. Now, if you don't care for the theme at all, would I still seek this one out? Probably not. In that sense, I would probably give it a 6. It's good. I'll play it if I'm in the mood, but it's not something I'm like actively like, oh yeah, this is one of my best worker placement or one of my best area control games. I don't think it's best at anything. You know what I mean? It's just okay at both. Together, it makes a good little stew together. It's okay stew. It's not the greatest stew, but it works, and I like that. And I do think overall, beyond the cars, the production is pretty cool with the tins and everything else. So there you go. That's my thoughts on The Godfather, Corleone's Empire. If you played it, let me know what you think about it. If you have other games that you think do a good combination of kind of worker placement and area control, share that in the comments below. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one.